Welcome to Audit Archive, where we run you through some of the most questionable and rather atrocious police encounters. Today, we're looking at a case where police officers used excessive force against a man who did not pose a threat to anybody whatsoever. The officers simply approached the man and tackled him to the ground immediately. On July 1st, 2023, two officers of the Akron Police Department were out on patrol duty when they noticed that a vehicle driving near Copley Road in Ohio possessed a temporary tag. Naturally, this gave the officers a reason to conduct a registration check on the vehicle to make sure everything was valid and good to go. However, after running the tag through their system, the officers noted that the plate was expired and there were active warrants for the owner of the vehicle. The officers initially lost sight of the vehicle for a short period of time before finally relocating it in the parking lot of a Family Dollar store. A man, namely Jordan Ely Sr., was standing next to the vehicle and the officers immediately made contact with him. The entire encounter was caught on one of the officers' body cams.
What's up, man? All right. Hey, come here, man.
Don't do this. Don't do this. Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, get on the ground. Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir.
Get on the ground.
Please, sir. Please.
Put your hands behind your back.
Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, don't do this to me, man. I said in the car, please, officer. Officer, please. I can't, man.
Hands behind your back. Do it
I
now.
cannot. I can't, officer. Oh my God.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands back. Hands your back.
As seen in the footage, without speaking to Mr. Ely for context or warning him about anything, both officers parked behind Mr. Ely's vehicle, essentially trapping him in, and then quickly jumped out to aggressively approach him before grabbing him by his arms and waist, then violently throwing him to the ground for seemingly no reason at all. As bad as it already was, one of the officers was also caught on camera punching Mr. Ely in the face. Even though it's already rather obvious that an excessive and rather unnecessary amount of force was used against Mr. Ely, it's important to refer to the law regardless. The Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services has laid out the general standards for law enforcement that are expected to be followed. Under the use of force standard, it's stated that employees may only use the force which is reasonably necessary to effect lawful objectives, including effecting a lawful arrest or overcoming resistance to a lawful arrest, preventing the escape of an offender, or protecting or defending others or themselves from physical harm. According to the officers' official reports on the incident, it's alleged that Mr. Ely reached out toward the open car door and started to run away as one of the officers attempted to grab his left arm to prevent him from fleeing. They also claim that Mr. Ely began to backpedal as officers were attempting to gain control of him. Let's replay the instance when one of the officers grabbed onto Mr. Ely's arm.
Don't do this. Don't do this. Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, sir. Please, get on the ground.
Now, judging by the footage, one could argue that Mr. Ely was not trying to flee the scene or backpedal in any way. In fact, it almost seemed like he went to shut his door, but this remains up for debate. Regardless of this, it's also worth noting that the officers, at that point, had no idea who Mr. Ely was, and were not even sure whether he was the man with the warrants that they were looking for. Anyway, watch as the officers remained in a scuffle with Mr. Ely while trying to place him in handcuffs.
Keep it down. Stop resisting.
Hey, let go of your hand. Let go of your hand.
I got a hand here.
I can't, officer.
I'm still pulling on it.
Yes.
No, I don't want to fight.
Stop. Put your hands behind your back.
I just want to talk to you, officer.
Dude, put your hands. Get us another car here.
I can't, officer.
Put your hand behind your back.
Please, officer.
Dude, I'm gonna hit you again, bro.
Dude, I'm gonna. Hands behind your back.
Behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
Get back.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Hey, I got a hand too.
I got asthma. I can't breathe. I can't breathe, officer. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
You're still trying to pull me.
Yeah, I see it.
Stop it, dude.
Here.
Y'all let me up, please. I can't breathe. I'm sorry. I was just scared. Yeah. Let me sit up, please. Officer, I got it. I just want to sit up.
You're 32 and the supervisor. Stop.
I just want to sit up.
Stay right here. Stay right here. You got 32 and the supervisor?
I got a supervisor.
I gotta go to the hospital.
Where's the kid?
I'm at the overdose. I'm at the overdose. Officer. Please,
You're gonna be alright.
I'm not.
You're gonna be alright. Stay safe.
Oh my God. Please, no. Oh my. Oh.
Stay here, dude.
No. I can't, man.
Just relax.
I got a lot going on.
You're gonna be
I
alright.
want to die. Just kill me, officer. No.
Stop.
No.
As we've just seen, Mr. Ely was clearly in distress, likely because of the force used by both officers against him. He even clearly stated multiple times that he was having trouble breathing since he had asthma. Despite his calls for help, he had to force himself up from the ground in order to breathe better. Also, Mr. Ely was now bleeding from his mouth, likely because of the punch thrown by one of the officers.
Go ahead and stand up, man.
Stand up. Stand up. Put your feet under you. Stand up. Stand up.
Jordan.
Hey.
Jordan.
Get up.
Get up, dude. Jordan, stand up, dude.
They're gonna lift up on your arm, feet up under you.
Alright, fine. You want to stay down there? Stay down. You search him? You search him?
I just did a quick pat down.
Take a couple steps back for me.
Okay, roll over.
Let's take a look at what the police report said about the scuffle. It stated that one officer grabbed Ely by the waist and took him to the ground. Verbal commands were given to Ely to put his hands behind his back and to stop resisting. Ely did not comply, and officers continued to try to separate his hands to safely handcuff the suspect. During the 2-minute struggle to get Ely into custody, strikes were used in addition to the physical grappling. Even though this recollection of events may be accurate, it does not mean that the officers were within their domain to do all this. Mr. Ely was not a threat to anybody, and he arguably did not attempt to drive away either. So the use of force remains under question. Rutgers criminal justice professor Wayne Fisher chaired the New Jersey Police Training Commission when it issued the state's use of force guidelines, and he said no part of the body is off limits when an officer decides force is required to make an arrest. But the force has to be reasonable given the circumstances. He added that police officers have the obligation to use only the amount of force necessary to accomplish their objective, and a punch in the head can inflict serious injury, so officers need to be judicious in their choice of action. But it can be sometimes necessary if an officer is in serious risk of being injured. If we take reference from this, it becomes even more clear that Mr. Ely was subjected to excessive use of force. Now watch as backup arrived, and the officers finally conducted an investigation, which included a search of Mr. Ely's vehicle.
Step back.
Roll on your side. Roll on your side.
Kid, okay?
Yeah.
Car hasn't been searched. I don't know if there's any weapons.
He's got a bunch of warrants. Hey, if you still have the channel held, you could release it and slow anybody else down. There's a kid in the car.
What's that?
There's a small kid.
Man, can y'all please not take my son? I want to
We'll start at 32 for him.
You guys are.
You said you called a 32.
1590 Chantel. Dying with a gun.
I just want my son to.
Huh?
I'm sorry.
I bet there is. He's got warrants for it, too.
Cigarette thing is the asterisk is sitting right there.
What is it?
My car not stolen nothing. You can have it, man.
Arguing with each other.
I didn't even do nothing to get stopped.
Well, your tag's expired, man. You got a bunch of warrants. So if you just listened to us, none of this would have
None of
happened.
this would have happened, man.
I was trying to talk to you.
Yeah, I bet you were, man. That's
I wasn't
ridiculous.
trying to fight you. I didn't fight
That's
you,
ridiculous,
officer.
man.
I had a hard time.
You're gonna be in a red truck.
We're gonna work with you, man, but this is all avoidable.
It's a red Silverado.
Yeah, we call.
Where's she at?
She just left me, man. Like literally, like I have no way to contact her, man. I just want to go get a phone right now. Dude.
Your kids in the car.
No, man. Damn, bro. I just want to be a dad, man.
You can't be a dad with drugs, bro.
Ain't no drugs in the car.
He planted that shit on them cigarette pack. That's my cigarette pack.
It's just cigarettes in there.
He's got a bunch of dope in the car.
How about that?
What's it?
Childish.
What a concept that is.
I didn't do nothing.
Stay on the side.
I'm not trying to be nothing.
As mentioned by the officers, there was indeed a child in the vehicle, supposedly Mr. Ely's child, who was released to a family member. In addition, officers found a baggie in the center console containing a powder that field tested positive for fentanyl. Mr. Ely was finally moved to a seated position and then taken to a patrol vehicle where he was secured while EMS made their way to the scene in order to check him out. Note that Mr. Ely was visibly in pain and rather unwell after the scuffle.
Are you ready to get
Are
up?
you gonna stand up now or what?
I was just scared.
I don't care if you're scared.
Y'all know
So listen,
I don't.
Let's get him up.
So listen, man, it's all over with, all right? Let's have you take a stand up, okay?
All right.
So,
Let's go.
It's all right.
Swing your feet under. Get up.
Let's get your shoes back on.
Outside of your mouth, is anything else here?
my whole body, man.
What part? Well, let's keep him away from the Come on, stand up.
Come on, dude.
I told you about, man. I'm not lying.
You didn't swallow any drugs, did you?
No, sir.
It's all over now, man. It's all over.
One more time on his pockets.
All right. Come on, man. Ambulance is coming. They'll check you out.
Swing your feet in. Swing, yeah, we'll roll the window down. Swing your feet in. Ambulance is right here. They're going to check you out.
I just...
Yeah, I'm not scuffed up, but yeah. You guys all right? Yeah.
All in all, Mr. Ely was charged with obstructing official business, resisting arrest, and felony possession of drugs. The officer's body cam was subsequently reviewed as it fell under the department's use of force policy, where all reported use of force incidents are investigated. Akron Police Chief Steve Mila issued the following statement about the situation. I am aware of a video circulating on social media that captures an interaction between APD officers and Mr. Jordan Ely Sr. on July 1st at approximately 7 p.m. on Copley Road. As with every use of force, the incident will be fully investigated to ensure APD policies and procedures were properly followed. At the conclusion of the internal investigation, the matter will be reviewed by the Akron Police Auditor and the newly installed Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board. What's interesting is that on July 6, 2023, 5 days after the incident, the Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board told 3 News that they're troubled by the video and will very likely review the case and give Akron Police some recommendations. Board Chair Kim Boyd shared one recommendation, which stated that, from a mental health perspective, hearing someone cry out that they can't breathe or they wanted to talk, needed help, there has to be some type of assistance there from some type of a mental health provider that's on, if you will, that team of police officers to engage in that as well. As of the date of this recording, the internal investigation is still active and is pending an update or conclusion. Be sure to check out our previous video where we cover another outrageous police encounter.